Hey, I was thinking. And so I wanted to come on here and share my thoughts with you. This is the time of the year that the parents get to send their kids back to school, whether they're going to college, kindergarten, or wherever. They get out of the house. So, you don't have to plan your day around your kids anymore. You don't have to worry about them eating you out of house and home. Like there'll be some structure there. So many parents are looking forward to this. And I just am tickled because, you know, I don't have children, but just seeing people talk about it, I know that they're joking well, joking-ish, when they talk about the excitement of them going back to school. I raised my niece for a little bit, so I had the opportunity to experience parenting for a moment. It was joyful at times, but parenting can be overrated. Being a parent can be overrated. You're underappreciated. The love you put out doesn't seem to be reciprocated sometimes. Yeah. But there's so many people who want to have that experience and would do anything to have it. This morning when I woke up, I caught an episode of a Judge show with Judge Hatchett. So that lets you know how old that is if you know who she is. And it was a young couple on there who wanted to have kids. The husband could not have kids because he had gone through prostate cancer. And so all the treatments left him sterile. So they tried insemination, where, you have like a turkey baster and inseminator, and it didn't work. And then they decided to ask a friend to donate his sperm and to try to do it naturally, meaning that this friend would have to sleep with the wife. They were willing to do whatever to have this kid. The friend happened to be a neighbor who was in an open relationship. So it was just a mess anyway. But he had recently had a kid like 2 years ago. And so, they figured, we're friends, we live here next to each other. We can have this kid. If you agree to sleep with the wife at least 3 times a week for 6 months, then we will pay you money towards your rent. That was the deal. Somewhere during that time, she was not getting pregnant. And so he ended up getting tested, and it was found out that he was sterile himself. So he couldn't get her pregnant. So the couple was there suing for their money back because they felt that he knew he was sterile. And really, he was just using this opportunity as an using it as an opportunity to sleep with the wife, just because they're he's already open in this relationship. But him finding out that he was sterile also let him know that his kid was not his because he's been sterile his whole life. A mess, a mess. But I was thinking to myself, like, where's the logic? Like, what made y'all say, excuse me, let me go to this neighbor who is a friend and have him sleep with my wife three, like, y'all okay with that? I mean, evidently they were, but that's what they were willing to do to have a kid. And I was thinking to myself, if you know my story, then you know that I've gone through cancer, and part of my journey was going through this, or potentially going through the IVF process myself. I did do egg harvesting, and I remember after my eggs was harvested, like they wanted me to choose a daddy off of a website. And I was just thinking, like, I cannot do this. I cannot do it. And one of the reasons, I guess they did go through the IVF, or they wanted to go through IVF, but one of the things I would say about IVF is that there are not a lot of male donors, Black male donors, I should say. And so if you're looking for someone who's Black, good luck. And so I remember when I had to go through this website, I just couldn't decide. I could not figure out a baby daddy from a site. Excuse me. I went to the site recently because I just wanted to see if there were more Black men who were donors. I mean, there's such criteria that has to be met, but then when you have a low amount of people who are actually donating, is very difficult. And for me, I couldn't use a friend. I couldn't use anybody that I knew. I had to use someone from a bank because of legal reasons. Just like these people were in court trying to get their money. Like you don't want to have a kid with someone that you know and then things fall apart and then there's, custody issues. Like they didn't want any of that. So I had to use a website and they didn't want to use a website. Needless to say, they didn't get their money back. This man walked away with $6,000 and sex with the man's wife. Then I happened to turn on my phone again. And if you have an iPhone, then you know that you get all these news sources that shows up. And so I think this may have been, I don't know what news source it was, but it was a story today about how in LA they have found someone who had 22 kids and she said they were all hers. And so as they did some investigating, they realized that this couple who were from China had used a lot of surrogates to have babies. The 15 that was in the house with them when the police got there were all under the age of 3. So they have 15 kids under the age of 3. What made them go to the house in the first place, let me say this, is because Child and Protective Services was called on them because one of the kids got hurt and seemed to be abused. And so the police were sent and the police found all these kids. But they had 15 and they used surrogates from all over the country to carry these babies for them. No one knows what they were planning to do with those kids, but I'm sure you could use your imagination. People want to have kids. Like that is a dream for so many. And when you can't fulfill that dream, some people just will be willing to do whatever it takes. Let me just put it that way. They will be willing to do whatever it takes. And so I wouldn't be shocked if these people weren't using people and paying for surrogacy so they can have these babies to sell. Crazy, crazy. And then I was reminded again, here I am, because when I see things about this, I'm interested just because of my own story. But Apple has a podcast that, you can have access to. And they had a story on there about egg harvesting and the darkness of this business, that it's a huge business for people to get eggs from young girls. They will pay a lot of money, $10,000, to get eggs from somebody that's 12, 16. Because when you're that young, you still have a lot of eggs. And so it really is probably not going to affect your chances of having kids at a later date. But when they have young eggs, typically you have good quality of eggs, right? But it's a whole business. People will pay $15,000 just for you to go through a cycle of egg harvesting, and they'll get 30 eggs. And people do it over and over again. And it's not a regulated industry, so it's not a whole lot that can be done. But I'm just thinking like the things that people will do to make their dream a reality. And I will say this before I even go on to my next point. In regards to them paying these young girls, really their families, right? Because these girls can't make decisions on them for themselves at the age of 12. And they go to countries, poor countries where $10,000 is a whole lot. It'll change your whole entire life. So they'll go to India or someplace like that. They do it over here in America too, but they will pay for these, for these eggs. And like this is part of like sex trafficking. When we think about kids being abducted and we're thinking it's because they want them to have sex with all these perverts that's out there. And we know it happens, but they also do it for this, to be able to harvest their eggs and sell them. Such a dark, cruel world we live in. Sometimes it just blows my mind. But the reason I wanted to come on here, I didn't mean to go there with all of that. I wanted to come on here to ask you, like, how far are you willing to bring your dream to fruition? What are you willing to do? Because some sacrifices have to be made. Nothing is given to you easily. Nothing. So let me know. You don't have to let me know, but just think about it. What are you willing to do to live the life that you desire? As I say that, I really feel like I need to start doing my workshops again because I think we need to get to a place of imagining what our lives could be. Yeah. So do me a favor. Go on over to YouTube and subscribe to youtube.com/ at Andrea D. Campbell. YouTube.com/ the at symbol Andrea D. Campbell. Subscribe to my page. And so when I start doing my workshops, you'll know. You'll know. So you can join me because we're going to make some dreams happen. That's what we're going to do. All right. Take care. Bye bye.